Welcome to the City of Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission Study Session meeting. I'd first like to thank the commissioners for their service. We will begin with item A1 to discuss regular agenda items. And that takes us to item C1, consider approval of the June 12th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners, any omissions, errors, typos? Anything of note? Okay. Well, we'll move right along to item C2. Consider the request for final plat approval of Midway Row House, Lot 1, Block A, located at 4020 McEwen Road, and take appropriate action.
Any questions on that item? It's a replat, 3 lots into 1.
And nothing else was done
No.
on that?
In terms of development, or it's just a replat?
Yeah. Are they, they're not finished over there.
They're nearing completion for the.
I drove by there, I guess Saturday.
And they've got a couple of buildings that I think are finished up and they're nearing completion on the others.
Okay.
But the plat is required prior to CO.
Makes sense. Any other comments, questions? All right, seeing none, we will move to item C3. Consider request for a detailed site plan amendment for a mixed-use development on approximately 7.76 acres located at 13465 Inwood Road and take appropriate action.
I just found this was another interesting case of them going in with the idea of having ground floor retail and having it not pan out, and having to come back through and turn it back into residential. That seems to be a common theme. Not surprising, I guess.
Well,
And we do commonly see that the other way around too, where it's built like residential first with the opportunity, potential for retail down the road.
Right.
So,
Which hasn't happened here very much.
right.
Yeah.
But those are common development patterns right now, especially with what's happening in brick and mortar retail.
I guess our only successful is over here off of Luna and,
Yeah.
or around
On the
the
other side.
area back over to there. And it's not a lot, but it is some, and that's been there always, hasn't it?
Along Luna?
Not Luna, actually you go where, behind the Hyatt, around there, around
There's
the,
a smoke shop and the.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. There's several things there. I can't even think of the name of
Okay.
the
That's one of the few.
Miralago. Around, you go Miralago and down around there. And then across the way, there's some there that are Miralago on, all the way over past the empty lots that we wanted to do that little boutique hotel. I think that would have been such a great idea, but didn't work. Anyway, and that's the only place we have really success of that, isn't it?
Well, at least stacked, there aren't many, but in many ways, the Mustang Station can be considered mixed-use development. Just because it's not stacked on top, it's still the entirety of the plan is a mixed-use development plan.
Well, I think that's the secret, is that you have to have something else going on before people really want to come there. It can't be supported by only the residents. I mean, maybe it could with a really good bar, maybe, or something, a neighborhood bar.
Cheers.
Such as Fish City Grill. I love Fish City Grill. We could make suggestions there. It might really work, because that's a neighborhood bar thing. I mean, I see the same people there all the time, including myself. So, anyway, but I think that's the secret. So the ones that are asking, the location is this, where is again?
Is that Inwood and Galleria?
Okay, got,
Just
yeah,
across.
yeah.
But there was one that came through in the last few months where they were going ahead with retail. Remember, they said they
Against
had
our
done-
suggestions.
Well, or just, we were just
Recommendations.
asking them because it was against the trend, and they said, well,
They
their
had the
data.
market research.
Their data
They were over
suggests-
on Luna, right?
Yeah, Luna,
Right.
yeah, exactly. So hopefully, we'll see how that one plans out.
And there are more rooftops in that direction now,
Yeah.
so there's a bit of that as well.
So what's our feedback on the one there around on the access road as you drive north on 635? What's our,
I think that might be out of the scope of this one.
it is, but I mean, I'm just asking in general about where we have things coming on that are restaurants and things like that. You know, it's right north of the little lake area.
The
It's on
boardwalk.
the access road of 635.
Boardwalk.
Boardwalk, yeah.
Well,
Yes.
It is empty. I just was
It's still empty.
yeah.
Is it ready to lease?
They've run into, I think, do you have something later than probably I have?
Last I heard, there were some major delays with Encore in getting their,
Hour?
yeah.
But that's been a trend
Yeah.
all over the metro. I mean, that's,
Really.
I think the shell buildings are close to ready for CO. I just don't know that we've seen any tenants come in. But they have a development agreement that requires occupancy within a certain time frame after they receive their CO.
now Encore's been saying year-long plus wait times for transformers.
Interesting.
So,
How long?
At least a year out.
Oh,
So it's been,
That's-
and that's, again, that's not just us here, that's been
statewide.
everywhere.
Is that, you know if it's labor or equipment shortage?
They're still claiming, supply chain, I'll take their lead on that.
Yeah,
one
that's
and say
fine.
that,
I
but
just, that's it. Yeah.
You think about what that does to the developer. I mean, that's got to be hard to eat that and
we-
just sit there on
you-
that.
You've got to have that load in mind
You gotta
of
factor
what
that
you're
in.
going to need and be calling that like right as you're starting
Right.
to have it set up for once
Yeah,
everything's
but
coming to
that's a
an end.
that builder there has been with us for years and years. So I mean, I'm sure that they know the deal.
I know they, to my knowledge, there was an Encore issue, and that goes back to at least July of last year, that they were supposed to connect power. I think they finally got that part of that resolved, so now they're just kind of working through the final touches to begin leasing those
Maybe they'll
spaces.
do that by the fall when that could open up and it'd be better weather for
Yeah.
them.
But you don't want to just sit outside right now.
It is over 100
Good time,
degrees,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on the detailed site plan?
Sorry.
That's okay. Just want to make sure we stay on
This is
point
my
here.
last chance to ask questions, so I'm all in.
All right. Well, seeing none, that takes us back to our study session. Item A2, provide an update on feedback received from City Council regarding proposed comprehensive zoning ordinance amendments related to landscaping and comprehensive zoning ordinance amendments related to tree preservation, and provide an overview of next steps. And I'm looking forward to your questions on this one.
Thank you.
I don't think it's going to provide enough to ask questions. This is very sparse.
Right. Well,
Nothing.
let me just start by saying that the landscape and the tree ordinance is it's very important to us, to staff, and we do want to try to make this a priority at this point. There is no argument that this topic has obviously been under review for quite some time, and I think a lot of the commissioners here can attest to that. I started in August of 2022, and it was around that time when I felt like that ordinance actually was picking up some steam. If you recall, this past November in 2022 and in February of 2023, this commission actually was able to give some feedback about the landscape and the tree preservation. And then in March, City Council provided some feedback to us. Now, Council talked about this ordinance, keeping it practical, making sure that it keeps the neighborhood feel on the residential and the commercial side. Our city does have one of the lowest landscape requirements in our area. Council was very supportive of more landscaping in front yards and supportive of a new ordinance. So,
Actually, before you go on, can you go back to that one?
sure.
So that the first one needs to be practical. That's not pointing to anything specific, like anything that you presented. They're saying this isn't practical, fix this. It's just very generic. Is that providing you any, I mean, how are you interpreting that as far as guidance for what isn't practical? How do you know what's not practical now in there?
Well, I mean, some of that's gonna probably be taking a chance on what we end up crafting when we take it to the city council and to P&Z
Okay.
and city council. Now, there were some items like listed within that landscape ordinance that I think in general they were asking or just saying, we do want to make sure that we keep it practical and not where we end up becoming like a Denton. You know how city of Denton is very, very specific, and I
Sure.
mean, it's a laundry list of items. I think the idea is to still have landscape standards, but again, not necessarily over regulate.
So what do you mean by Let's talk about Denton right quick, and why is that overly restrictive versus what we're doing?
Well, it's all, I wouldn't say when you compare it to other cities, they probably have more regulations than the typical city. I mean, just looking at it from face value, as far as what we've read about what's in the city of Denton, as far as like what they require. Now, again, I don't want to just point at city of Denton. There's a lot of cities. I mean, I can even look at the last city I worked at, City of Midlothian. We had a pretty hefty landscape ordinance, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely, if that's the will of the council, if that's the will of the commission, absolutely.
Are you speaking of the list of what trees or bushes or grasses or whatever? Are you speaking about a list of things? This is our good list, this is our bad list, or this is our small, medium, and large trees? Is this, I mean, I'm speaking that we need to have that.
You're right, and
Okay.
it's a very comprehensive list of, and that's true, yes.
So, but also, you don't plant, closer than, so many feet close to your house.
Sure.
That's not restrictive. That's good practice.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that, I mean, when I called Brian, he was befuddled about what are you talking about? I said,
Right.
This doesn't do anything. I don't even see what we're talking about.
Right, and
I
I
think what
think,
Marcus is talking about Denton is, there was a chart that would presented all the cities that had like little to no ordinance. Then there was a middle column, which is sort of a medium level of.
Yes, but
of
what
ordinance.
is
And then
it?
Denton was more on the higher end of most restrictive, I think that may be what
Yeah.
Marcus, in the general terms.
yeah, but
But I think
But there are a
that-
lot of details, yes, that would need to
Yes,
be.
but when whoever is developing that whole thing needs to have those things.
Yeah.
And so we had lists of things on there that were not even in our zoning, planting zones and things on that last list, which I made a comment on. But, so until we can see what this is, we can't really make any decisions.
right. This is strictly just an update. That's what I was going to get to also, is that we do not have a drafted ordinance at this point. At this moment right now, there is not a drafted ordinance. And I think later on in the presentation, I was going to get into some of those specifics, but we can absolutely
Okay.
talk about those
Oh,
specifics
let's
now.
go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, no, that's fine. This is more of just the general feedback that we got from city council
Okay.
from the March meeting. Now, again, things occurred in April, things occurred in May, and unfortunately, this item wasn't, I wouldn't say it was put on the back burner, but it was not prioritized as some of the other items that we had going on in April and in March. That's why now that we're coming to the end of the comprehensive plan, we absolutely want to try to make this a priority and get this out there. And I've got some ideas in here that we could actually streamline it a lot quicker. And I know, Linda, in your particular case, I know you're rolling off of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right.
But there's still ways that you obviously could still participate.
Yeah,
Whether,
I saw
we
that.
were going to talk a little bit about
I
subcommittees.
think
or
that comes
just-
up in your presentation a little bit
Right.
later. I think.
Okay.
Absolutely. No, not, yeah. So these are, again, this is very, very high level, just the feedback that we got from them. They do want to see something practical. They definitely want to, I think the council and even the commission here, y'all all know that our landscape standards are just not, it's kind of apples to oranges when you compare it to some of the other cities that we're around, unfortunately. And that's not a bad thing. That's just something that we haven't really put together yet. So,
And one of the key things is that the Essex HOA board is going to be leaning on having a actual plan for the homeowners that are in the Mercer Crossing space area, because they're getting out of control and we have no way to drive them to or direct them or manage their expectations on what a good landscape would look like over some of the things that we've been seeing. And we definitely, don't plant bamboo, don't plant Japanese honeysuckle, things of that. But that's just from just knowing that part. I'm not by far
Right.
no green thumb, but I think that it is a lot of the other communities are going to look towards how this plan looks and works so that we can actually start driving that to our homeowners in the same direction, because our residents, we want them to have a good lawn, but, you know, to their detriment, they will plant whatever they see on HGTV.
No, understood. You know, and that does bring us into like the tree preservation side also. I mean, with tree preservation, you know, the council was very cautious about us, you know, not really turning into our own HOA for tree preservation. You know, if we do move forward with protecting trees, we definitely want to educate the public. We want to make sure that before the public pulls a permit, or if a builder is going to pull a permit, that they understand our tree preservation ordinance. Not to mention, you know, when an applicant or when a resident moves here and they're new and they're trying to get their certificate of occupancy, whether again we're talking about new build or old build or existing build, that they're educated, whether that is a pamphlet or a brochure or something that we can get out there and they understand that if we're going to have tree preservation, we don't want to surprise anybody that, oh, hey, you know, you've cut that tree down, now you're getting cited or something. And that's really not where we're trying to go with any of this. Council was also very supportive of protecting trees during the construction as well. So that's something that we're absolutely going to try to fit into that ordinance and make sure that that's something that we can all definitely agree on. So, you know, going back to, it was the end of March when we did get that direction. And in April, as we all know, things changed, obviously. I mean, our deputy director left. I assumed the role a few weeks later after that. Budget started. We were trying to finalize PD 86. We also obviously had our public engagement items going on for the comprehensive plan. All the while, we were short-staffed also as well. So unfortunately, again, as I was mentioning earlier, you know, we do not have an ordinance to provide today. But we are going to make this a priority without a doubt. And you know, we are, as it shows up here on the screen, we are planning to bring these at separate times. We're going to bring the landscape ordinance first, then the tree preservation. Normally, we would draft the ordinance, and then we would hold a study session with the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then hold another study session with City Council to get y'all's feedback. There's ways we can streamline this also. We could just draft the ordinance and go straight to public hearing, you know, and not necessarily have to have study sessions or multiple study sessions. So again, there's ways, if this is something that we want to try to move through the process quicker, drafting the ordinance does take some time because it is a lot of information, and we want to make sure that we bring something that you guys are going to support and that City Council is going to support. Again, but if it's a matter of timing, that's just something to think about. We could always not do additional study sessions, and we could just come straight forward with the public hearing side of this. And
Who will
you know,
decide that? How will that be decided, that plan?
well, we could take. I mean, there's nothing that says that I have to do a study session. I mean, if this board or this body feels that we don't want to have more study sessions and we just want to see that ordinance, absolutely, we can have that drafted and we can bring that forward without getting any more feedback. If you guys decide to, you know, like maybe y'all don't like what's necessarily in that ordinance, well, that's part of the public hearing process and we could table the item at that moment. It would be out there already if we did something like that. I would recommend still doing another study session. Once that ordinance is drafted, then we come in, do the study session, get feedback. Again, that does take time. We would still want to go to City Council and do that as well. But if you guys wanted this to go forward sooner or faster, we absolutely could do that. Now, I know next month is a little different also. We're going to have some new board members that are going to be joining us the next meeting. But this item has been discussed. It's been in the process for a while. So I just want to be cognizant of that also as well.
Have you gotten any feedback from the council membership as to how fast they want to expedite this? Did they give you any feedback in that area as far as?
Not yet, but I mean, that's always something we could ask and see if they have interest in seeing something like that as well. So if that's the case, if it's pretty unanimous on something like that, then absolutely, then we would want to just not do additional study sessions and draft everything and bring it to public hearing.
I think the question that comes to mind to me is, frankly, staff and or our level of confidence that that draft would be in a good enough state to skip that study session. Because to me, the benefit of the additional study session, of the traditional pathway of hosting a study session is to iron out all of those details and get it in, tip-top shape before the public hearing. Because otherwise, sometimes what happens is at those public hearings, then folks feel like it's sprung on them or it doesn't feel fully thought through if there are little inconsistencies or, things that we could clean up. And so I don't honestly know the answer to that myself. What state it will be in is, not that I don't have every confidence in staff, but it is,
Right.
as you mentioned, a lot of detailed information. And it will be a fairly lengthy ordinance as those go. And at least as I understand and see it, with the emphasis on educating the public, likely in addition to the ordinance itself, I would suspect we would have additional documentation that would be kind of marketing level, or at least that would be produced out of it for that public education. And many municipalities provide that along with the ordinance itself. They provide that, documentation that's more shareable, if you will, right? That breaks down the ordinance into.
Well, that also goes to your builders. I mean, the builders are some of your major wrongdoers on how they plant, where they plant, how close they plant. All of those things are, they contribute to the life of your product, which is our trees and our plants. So, I mean, I'm hoping that you have someone that knows what they're doing when you're writing these ordinances and when you're making those decisions on the plants and things like that. Now, you do have someone in Farmers Branch, but he has another job that I don't know that he would come into that. But I'm just hoping someone's asking for help on that before
Right.
you throw it up to the public and say, what do you want?
Right. No, Kira McCurdle, she's worked with us for a while. She normally does these types of comprehensive zoning updates. She has worked. I know I have myself. I've worked in creating landscape ordinances in the past, also as well for the past cities that I've worked for. So it is going to be a collaborative effort, but she is heading this process up. And again, we're making that a priority as far as we want to see this thing turned around, soon. It's going to take a couple of months probably. I mean, we're estimating that we could get this in front of y'all, regardless of whether we do it straight to public hearing or if we do it as just another study session. We'd still be looking at probably end of August, beginning of September is what I would estimate, just given all the other items that we have going on as well. But I fully trust her, and I think between me, Sarah, Brian, and Chris.
She has a gardening background and the information on the trees and the plants and the whatever.
Well, I mean, she has
This is the question I'm asking you.
Sure.
You need the knowledge of that for this North Texas area.
Right. Now,
pretty limited.
We could always, I mean, there's always the option to, and we've done this many times before where we've worked with a consultant. We have worked with consultants in the past. I mean, we worked with consultants for PD 86, we worked with consultants for the comprehensive plan. If that's something that we need to do also, that's something we could definitely look at as far as working with it. It's going to take some time, and of course, we just have to make sure we have the budget also to work with an outside consultant, like a kind of like a landscape, I wouldn't even say an art landscape architect, but just somebody who understands.
Yeah, they're the ones that
You
draw
know.
up for your buildings that you're planting.
Right, well.
Not always a good, I'm
Yeah.
forcing this really right
No,
now.
absolutely.
It's not always the landscape architect that works for a company,
Mm-hmm.
maybe stationed out of Kansas, and that's what they always write up, or
Right.
whatever. I'm just asking you, I'm pleading with you.
Right.
Use someone that knows this area and knows what goes in and doesn't do well, and the things that are not doing well now that may be on a planning list from somewhere, which I still do see when these things come forward.
Gotcha.
So I'm asking you to please
Oh, no,
consider someone that absolutely knows it.
Absolutely. We absolutely, we can look at it. We can definitely consider it, look at it. We'll find somebody Even you, Linda. I mean,
Okay.
it's always possible.
Please.
Like, I mean, and that kind of leads us into like the subcommittee side
Yeah.
of things too, because with a subcommittee, I know this question had been brought up during the joint meeting, and again, I just want to give some very general information about that. Absolutely, subcommittees are permitted in our city. I mean, all it takes is, as long as there's less than 3 or less members can meet, you can actually meet with the public. And as long as it's not over 4, then we don't have to worry. It's not triggering any type of Open Meetings Act requirements. You can talk about any topics you want to talk about. If we wanted to talk about landscaping or tree preservation, we don't need to notify our legal team. That information that you get can always be brought back to the Planning and Zoning Commission. You can brief. We can be briefed on those subcommittee
There are people here
information.
in Farmers Branch that are this level that I work with and that are here that are very, very knowledgeable, and they don't sit on a committee here necessarily. One may have come on to P and Z because I know he is a native plant specialist, and I think he may have applied. I have no idea who made that.
okay.
But there are those here that live here and in Farmers Branch.
No, I mean, I need that information.
Yeah, and
We
I
need that
have a
information.
neighbor who's a master
that.
naturalist.
Yeah.
You know, so
Actually, I knew
Naturalist
one.
is not, okay.
There was I know a master nurse. You're a master
Gardener.
Master gardener.
Naturalist and native plant specialist.
Yeah, there's one I'm close with
okay,
one.
naturalist is not, they're for a different realm.
I got you.
We're looking at the plantings here.
Planting side, right? Yeah, there's a gentleman I worked with in Midlothian that he was also, I think it was a master gardener.
Okay.
Scotty Rigsby was his name.
Okay.
I don't know if you know him or
Those
not.
are things we're looking for.
Yeah, and it's folks like that
Yes.
you know, if we do need to reach out to folks like that, absolutely, we can always consider it, look at it, and if that's something that we want to do, all I really need to do is bring that back to this committee or to this board and let y'all know that that's something that we're considering looking at. So.
And I think
Absolutely.
your points are well taken, and we're also positioned with the comprehensive plan to do the most good in
Right.
terms of, we know that several of the key things that came up in the comprehensive plan were those sort of administrative, working well with our developers. And to my mind, as you said, this educational piece fits directly in alignment with that. So what I'm hearing, and you can correct me if I'm hearing it wrong, is that I think that subcommittee route, it sounds like, would give us the insight and the flexibility to come forward with the best possible plan. And then
Sure.
the next question would be then, perhaps with that subcommittee structure, we could move faster and also have a little different structure. Maybe instead of it being a full study session, it's a report from the subcommittee
Yes.
that kind of takes the place or is that study session.
Sure.
And they're really
That's my thought.
presenting
Yeah.
nearly done product that we're
Yes.
we'll receive that here, and then we can move from that into the public hearing phase. Does
So
that sound?
That transferred over to you. That's good. That's what's my thought.
That's what I'm hearing. Do other thoughts about the
I'd like to hear
subcommittee?
more about the task force in his presentation as it relates to this whole subcommittee.
Yeah,
Would we
no.
not want to do a task force versus a subcommittee, or,
Sure.
what are the details behind all of that? What can we do, what can't we do, and what would be the best
Yeah,
for us maybe in this situation?
It's basically just a more formal process. I mean, it's got to be initiated by the staff, and then it has to be approved by the city council. So I would have to go through a regular agenda item, talk to the city council, make sure that they're okay, that they approve that task force. It's going to require, just like how we do this meeting right now, we have to post for it. We do it, in advance, 72 hours in advance. We take minutes in this meeting. So
So the
it's-
task force is initiated by city staff?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that's another option too. That's something that we can look at as well.
In asking that, are you concerned that we might accidentally reach quorum at a subcommittee?
No, I don't think
or-
so. I'm just trying to understand all our options here.
Sure.
What our restrictions are, what can or can't we do? Well, we can't create a task force because it has to be city staff initiated.
Sure.
Now I know that.
But we could recommend it.
Yeah, we
from
could,
our,
we could suggest it.
if that, best suits our needs.
I have a
I'm,
quick question on the technical. So meeting of 4 or more members, could those all be citizens? if we do a subcommittee and it was all citizens, does that mean that even you couldn't have more 4 citizens or those?
You can have 4 members.
Members of-
Members of the P and Z.
Talking about
Yes.
commissioners,
So
right?
commissioners, so if
Yes.
you only had one, well, if you only had one commissioner and you could have as many citizens as
Yes.
you want.
So we
Okay.
could
So
have
I'm
a
saying is
commissioner, say as a lead, and then
Yes,
have 2 or 3
exactly.
other
you're never
horticultural
really at
specialists
risk
or
of a
whatever,
quorum
and have
you
them
can-
report to us periodically.
Absolutely, or you could
Yeah.
have 20
Yeah, there you go.
citizens.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah, the prohibition is on quorum.
A quorum of
Quorum of
Members
commissioners.
of this.
Commissioners,
this-
right?
Yes, yes, yeah. There's no such thing as quorum if you're not a member of the, like, that's the.
Yeah, that's what I was trying
Yeah.
to see, if we created a subcommittee.
He's just clarifying, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I think the subcommittee option, if you guys did decide to do something like that, it's, again, there's not the typical formalities. It's easier to probably meet. There's a lot more flexibility with that, but with the task force, that's different. That's, we definitely have to get into the Open Meetings Act. We definitely have to have quorum. I know there was a few times we had set up with our comprehensive plan, we had a strategic, the technical committee that we couldn't meet because we couldn't hit quorum in some
Right,
instances.
and not that we do a task force, but is there a minimum number of persons that
That would all
comprise a
have to
task
be,
force?
it would all be created by,
Okay.
like, when we take it to city council, we would have to create that. We'd have to find that number, we'd have to create a
I see, okay.
resolution, get it all approved. It would have to go through a formal process with council. And all those details would be created essentially by staff and council.
How do folks feel? Are you, after hearing the task force and subcommittee, are you leaning in one direction versus the other?
Well, I was just thinking ahead to the end of the meeting where you say, what do you want to put on a future agenda? And I was thinking, I would like to put the idea of creating a subcommittee, having citizens,
Subcommittee is a better situation.
yeah.
Task
and
force,
maybe just a-
if you open this up to the public, no telling what you'll get. As far as the things you're trying to decide upon, because it is fairly narrow. I mean, it can be broad, but for what we want within our city, to open it up to, everybody coming, I guess they don't have to, but a subcommittee is more zeroed in and they're more focused on what we want and can go forward.
And you can identify the resources or the team members that you need to help
Yeah,
to make
yeah.
that work in a subcommittee over than having a planned task force.
Right, and I think what I'm understanding too is that the expertise that we're looking at is a technical one in many ways. It is a technical expertise. So again, to your point, what I'm hearing is a subcommittee may help us best achieve that.
Are there any restrictions on the participants within the subcommittee with respect to being a resident of Farmers Branch, or are there any qualifications? They have to get a criminal background check? Is there any kind of thing they have to go through?
I
to
would probably want to
participate
check.
in either?
Oh no, I would definitely want to check with our city secretary, but
Okay, I didn't know.
I'm not aware of any type of restrictions like that. I mean, I don't see, if you're wanting to work with some experts, I don't see why that person would have to be in Farmers Branch, but I would want to check with our city secretary for sure.
But it's up to that subcommittee to ensure that the content and information that's being provided meets the standards of Farmers Branch and that it helps with the understanding for the Farmers Branch residents.
Yeah, and I think that's where the report back to this body plays a role.
Absolutely.
Because that subcommittee would not be a decision-making body. It's a expertise, providing recommendation. And of course, that's often what we're doing, is providing recommendation. I mean, there are some things that we, have the final say on, but.
So I guess this point of order then is, if we were leaning towards wanting a subcommittee, do we need to add it to an agenda, to a future meeting? Because it's not on the agenda, we're here just receiving this? Or is, because this is part of this, could we just now almost be like, say we want to have a
Me, it would come
subcommittee?
up under new.
That's what I would
items
think
or-
too. It was-
Well,
I was
that
kind of
would have
waiting
to
for
be
that,
in a
but yeah.
Agenda.
I don't think you need to do any, I mean, I can double check with our city secretary, but if you guys just wanted to meet to create a subcommittee, you just meet and create the subcommittee. There isn't a formal action that we need to take. Like, we don't need to go any further than this room as far as getting permission for 3 members or less to meet with other folks outside, however y'all want to do that. And then you can always bring that information back to, just let me know or let somebody on our staff know that you want to have that discussed at the next study session. And then we'll be sure to get that on the study session and y'all can talk about your findings.
Yeah, I think that that would be a good way to go, is to put that on the agenda. And especially since, as you mentioned, we will have new council members or new commissioners. So we want to make sure that we're, inclusive of those new individuals potentially to, figure out who are the best folks to serve. And I think the only strong recommendation I would say is that despite you rolling off the commission, that I have a strong recommendation that you be on this subcommittee.
Yeah.
Included, as it is your expertise.
So we don't need to make a motion or move or anything. We can do it right here and now.
You can just do it right here, right now. from what I understand.
Then I would propose that we comprise a subcommittee of 3 persons, one of which being Linda Bertle, one commissioner, as well as one additional person that the 2 of them, maybe your friend that you spoke about, might be interested. I would like us to go down that path at this point, unless we have to make it more official in a
No.
motion or anything to that matter.
That sounds like hopefully not too many cooks to spoil the broth.
Yeah, I think if you have qualified people, that's good.
Yeah.
So that-
I don't know who the member from this body would be on it, and I can't guarantee that they'll have the qualifications that you want because
But they have to be there,
but
so.
they have to be there for it to be a
So maybe we have
subcommittee.
4.
Oh, we can- Yeah, I was just thinking a commissioner and 2 others, or a commissioner
Has
and
to
a
be
few
3.
others.
Well, it doesn't
No.
have to be.
So that we can look to that commissioner for their report
Okay.
to us.
Number
Yes.
3 comes from the fact that no more than 3 commissioners
This
can.
commission-
Correct.
Okay, no
Correct.
more than 3
I
commissioners.
understand where
Okay.
you're coming from 3, because then it's a nimble group.
Yes.
And a commissioner that can report to us
Yeah.
with whatever the
You have to
progress
have
is
one
on that.
commissioner
That's
on.
kind of my
Yes.
thinking.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So I think the only, thing for the agenda item for next time will be us determining the commissioner to serve in that capacity.
Absolutely. And then you'll need an ordinance to look at also.
And then we'll need an ordinance. But what we would like to do is to be able to, with your staff's permission, be able to put them in contact with the appropriate staff member. I assume that would be Kira, but as you said, she's leading that in order to provide them some of that, the ordinance, and kind of a schedule too, so they can determine the best time to meet and that sort of thing.
Sure.
So just, we would empower that commissioner that serves in that capacity to be
And
a
Linda,
staff conduit.
I assume by your passion, you would be interested in taking on that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I worked on this, guys, for years, and,
Understand.
and here I'm going off and it's not done. So I feel as though a little remiss.
Right.
Actually,
No,
so-
understood.
okay.
Absolutely.
you.
Absolutely.
We wanted you to know that we appreciate all of your efforts and
The pushing
this
I've done.
Thank you. At least I do. I can only speak for myself,
you,
but it
thank
is
you.
greatly
Yeah.
appreciated.
All right. Does anybody else want to beat me up? Anybody else? Does anybody else? No, I'm joking.
It's
I'm
just
joking.
accountability.
Oh,
That's
no,
all.
absolutely. No, I understand. I understand.
For
Absolutely.
best serving the needs of
Check with your friend if you think he would be a good
Yeah, I've got a couple of
helper.
people, 2 or 3 people.
all right.
That's all I have on this, unless
Okay.
anyone else has any other questions.
Any other thoughts? I appreciate that you are separating them in the timeline. And so that's also an important note for you as you go forth with this, is that there are 2 separate ordinances and that may extend the timeline such a bit. So just making sure folks are aware of that commitment.
Great.
All right. Thank you so much. I
Absolutely.
appreciate
No
that.
problem. No problem.
Okay, moving on to item A3, discuss agenda items for future Planning and Zoning Commission consideration, which I think we've already identified that
One.
So much for that.
one key item that we would need would be to determine at that at our next meeting in the study session, presumably, who would like to serve in the capacity of, for the landscape ordinance and the tree preservation ordinance.
There could be up to 3 commissioners.
Like
There could be up to 3, and so,
If people have if they wanted.
yeah.
commissioner selection for the subcommittee on tree
Commissioner
and
selection,
landscape.
that is true. That would be the wording. My only concern, and I like the idea of keeping it 1 or maybe 2, just so that we don't inadvertently create a
yeah.
quorum or
Yeah, I'm
or
not-
that sort of
I'm
thing
not
of the
making
members of this
judgment. I'm
body.
just saying, at this point, it wouldn't have to be one.
Correct.
I was only looking at one as a person who can report back to us
Yeah.
as a commissioner on what's
Yes,
happening in that.
Yes. And of course, all the members of that
But certainly
subcommittee
we
would
could have
be
multiple.
welcome
Yeah.
at those because they are
Certainly we could have more.
our study sessions are open meetings, so they're all welcome. But that would okay. Thank you all very much. Well, with that, we are finished with our study session.
One second.
You had
I have a
others.
new-
Apologies.
I thought we were doing a tour.
I
I know I was out 2 weeks ago. I was
Yes.
on vacay.
Well, while you were on your vacation, we did receive information from staff that we are postponing that tour. It's my understanding, and staff can correct me, that the tour guide that it has been selected, who I believe will be an excellent person, was unavailable during that time.
Okay.
So I think we're going to work with their schedule and now with our new commissioners
Okay.
to hopefully develop a timeline for that tour. I do still think that is a valuable exercise, especially given what's come out of the comprehensive plan as we've advanced that. And it was brought up at the joint meeting that, of course, it's historically been the case that city council is invited to these as well, and they're, of course, part of that
Okay.
also.
Fair enough.
On that note, with the new commissioners on board, Marcus, are you going to be reaching out to the new commissioners? Will you also be providing them any updates so they can try to get up to speed on the comprehensive stuff? Maybe some reading materials or something that might help
Right.
them
Yeah,
get going?
that's the plan for sure. I'm not sure if I can move that, maybe not. I think I think after the 1st is when we'll be able to, they'll officially be a part of the
Sure.
committee or a part of the board. And then the idea is to also send them out the comprehensive plan, because I know we're taking action on the comprehensive plan on July 10th. So we want to get those plans out to them sooner than later. We just received the final version of the comprehensive plan, actually on Friday afternoon. So that's going to be sent out to the new board members, and you guys will also be getting that here very soon, very shortly.
Should we do anything earlier than the 10th within our group here to just talk amongst the new commissioners? Have they been brought up to speed? Do they have questions? Maybe,
Well,
I don't know if you want to call it a
I'm-
study session or what, but
I was gonna reach out to them and talk to each member
I didn't
and just see if they have any questions or what all, I plan to bring them up to speed as much as I can, as much as possible.
I
for
just
sure.
didn't know if you.
Yeah, that's a
thought-
good question. We do also get those books as reading material. I know they're not,
Right, there's a lot,
I
there's a lot for
realize,
them. to-
boom, I'm excited about those things. Everyone else might not be
There's a
so
lot for them to
enthused.
absorb in a very
Yes.
short
Yes.
period of time
There
here,
is.
like 10 days. So I'm
Yeah.
thinking, is there anything we
Yeah,
can
I
help
believe
them?
our city secretary is also reaching out, because there's an orientation that's going to
Yeah.
occur.
Right.
And then we're also working with Kevin Laughlin, our attorney. He's going to have a kind of a session with y'all and with the new members also, just to go over all the legal side
Yep,
of being a
yep.
board member as well. So that's all planned. I just don't know if that's definitely not going to happen before the 10th.
Right.
That's
Oh,
the
okay.
only issue.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to say if it was before the 10th, I would love to be in that.
Oh, no, it'll be,
orientation.
the soonest we'll be able to do the
This way.
orientation will be till August.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it'll happen in August.
Okay, no problem.
But your point is well taken
Is
about
that
getting them up to
comprehensive?
speed.
There's a lot of pages
It's
to
a
that
lot,
thing.
there's a lot to it.
And I'm sure if they read through it, they're going to have questions, highlighted things, and I don't know how much time it's going to take of you if they have any questions.
Oh, it'll take a
But
lot.
I would think,
Well, what I'm hearing you say too, that might be a good way to address it would be to, if possible, for that 10th date. Sometimes we have our study sessions start much earlier, right?
Yeah.
So, to the degree that we can, moving back that study session start time to be a bit earlier may help.
We were looking at 5:00 is what
Yeah.
we were hoping to do. Now, we hadn't set that in stone just yet,
Yeah.
but we were already looking at doing an earlier start time for the study session.
Right.
Only because we were going to have, there's 2 topics of discussion that night, and we want to be sure that everybody fully understands the comprehensive plan and then the other subject that we're going to be talking about for that evening.
yeah,
Do you think that
I'm just
would-
thinking, trying to help them. 'Cause
Yes.
We're in a really compressed schedule here. How can we help that get
Can
up
we
to
do
speed quicker.
Thursday study session before going into going into the Monday meeting? I think it will just having them to, first they'll have the content, they'll be able to absorb it or whatever they can absorb. We meet prior to that actual meeting, so at least if they have questions, then we can actually address some of the questions. They may have questions we've had over the course of a comprehensive plan. So,
Well, let me ask you this as it pertains to that, because we've heard that, and I know that you're still hiring for a new planner. I saw that advert go out at UTA, so
Oh, good, good.
I know that's coming. And so I'm curious, especially with that, in terms of staff load, and, we've been certainly told to be aware of that. Which do you see being the best way to, again, ensure that the people get the information they need and has a lesser load on staff? Would it be a combined meeting of everyone together at the same time, or, as you mentioned, sort of separately fielding those individual questions from?
Personally, I was just going to meet with each individual, like the new commissioners individually, even if it's a few hours for each one, just to do whatever I got to do to try to get them up to speed on whatever I can.
yeah.
So part of the job, it doesn't bother me to do that. And then holding the study session, earlier in the day on the 10th, I think would be beneficial and helpful as well.
And then just again, I hate this point of order, tonight is point of order night, but July 10th is what exactly? I know you're bringing it, but what is happening? Is it being voted on? I mean,
Yes.
So that's the night where the
Comprehensive plan.
P&Z planning group says,
And we've got all these new people.
we
That's
say
what-
yes, we say no to it.
Yeah.
Can we do an informal study session?
I'd have to look into that and see how.
I mean, can we
if-
do an informal
post
session
those.
where
We
we're
have to
just
post
reviewing?
if we
Yeah.
have-
Oh, so,
Yeah.
so
That
just
follows the open
reviewing the
meetings.
PowerPoint
Has
as
to
a
post.
group has to be
Yes,
posted?
if we have quorum, and again, that was our discussion around the subcommittee, so if we have more than 3 members of the commission, then it is a public meeting, it requires a public meeting posting and hearing.
Even if it's just flipping through the actual
Yes.
presentation as a group?
Well, and it's I believe it's 5 new members, and a couple of the members have served, luckily they've served like on boards before, from what I understand. But again, they haven't, they're probably not up to speed on the comprehensive plan, and, that's where we'll come into play and try to get them up to speed, give them the document if they're able to read through it or if they've got questions. We've read through that document multiple times, so, we'd be there to try to field or answer any questions they have before we have before the meeting on the 10th.
And again, it is a lot of onus on you and those potential commissioners, but we do also have the recordings from those
Meetings?
Those meetings
Absolutely.
as a potential resource.
That actually you bring up a really good idea there too. I mean, those are
Public.
links that we absolutely can send to all the commissioners
Yes.
with the comprehensive plan also. And it's just, probably doing it during their leisure, obviously.
Yes,
So.
In your spare time,
their
review
spare
the past
time.
year.
Well, not the full, but I'm
Yeah,
thinking
not the
some of
full
those
thing,
key
but-
meetings that we've had discussing it.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah. I think it's a good idea.
Be voting on whether to recommending to send this to the city council
Yes, sir.
for approval. That would be one option. We can, yes, and if we said no,
Mm-hmm.
what if people say if we said no, what would happen to this thing?
We still go to city council. You would just be recommending denial of
Okay.
it. But we could still go to city council with a
Could we
denial.
push it a month?
The comprehensive plan?
Yeah.
No, that's pretty much set in stone as
It's
far
a
as
schedule.
the schedule.
Yeah, very scheduled.
But I mean, again, I guess there's. Hopefully, that wouldn't be the case.
It would take
I
something
hope
really
not.
major.
Right. Yeah.
Fair
it takes
enough.
something
For
very-
that
I was
to
just
be a-
trying to think of ways to at least get the new members an
Oh,
opportunity
up to
to
speed.
understand what they're voting on before they get into a meeting on the 10th and say,
Yeah. The timing was just.
Yeah, the timing is a little tough.
Could we do a simple study session like she mentioned, like maybe the
Looking
6th or
at what-
7th or something like that?
It would have to meet, we'd have to
Be a
follow
public
the
meeting.
open.
We still have
Open
time, we
meetings.
still have time to post it,
It'd be
it's just
72 hours ahead, right?
72-hour
72
posting.
hours.
If we wanted to do something, say, on the Thursday, the 6th, or something like that, we could
Well,
post it on, I guess you just
Yeah, I mean, I
post
think we
it
can,
This
right?
Friday.
I mean,
There would be some staff availability questions.
Yeah, also
Stan Tech
Tech
is presenting.
is giving the presentation at P&Z.
Right.
they would be given the presentation, but as far as like, if you guys wanted to hold like an additional meeting, I wouldn't be able to have Stantec here. I mean, we'd have to.
No, I'm just
That's
thinking
fair.
that to
Yeah.
give them the next 5, 6, 7 days of July to read through the information, look at these videos, all the other stuff they have to do,
I see.
maybe come to a table and say, hey, how are you guys doing? Are you up to speed? Because we're going to be voting on this on the 10th.
Right.
You got questions? Let's
Yeah.
talk about it. Let's work it out, whatever.
My
That's kinda
question
my
would
thinking,
be
but-
in terms of, scheduling that. I mean, we're talking about, Monday being soon in
Soon.
their schedule. Having that even earlier and assuming that everyone could make it, right?
Yeah, I was
Because
just
it's
trying to
not
work
on-
around the 4th of July
Right.
thing. That's why I said,
Of
I was
course.
choosing the
Oh,
6th.
But
yeah.
recognizing that 4th of July, I know a lot of folks are on holiday as
Gosh,
well.
for the
it didn't even
entire
occur to me.
week.
Yeah.
That's why I was like
Yes.
the 6th. I mean, the 7th is a Friday, but I don't know.
So if we all vote nay, then can we revote in the following month?
Well, it would still go to city
It
council.
would still go to city
Council.
council. It would,
Yeah. I wouldn't recommend.
I was just trying to get, I know. I was just like, okay. Let's see.
You should have already done it, yeah.
Okay, no,
Yeah,
fair enough,
and I
fair
forgot
enough.
about you're right, next week is the 4th, July 4th.
Because really,
And that also
they've really got
reduces-
2 weeks from 2 weeks and a couple days
Yeah.
from today.
yes.
And they're going to vote yay or nay. And it just seems like a lot to me, but with
Yeah.
everything
No,
else they got to learn and get up to speed and their work-life stuff too. So I don't know, it just seems like a lot.
Yeah,
And
I
Linda's
agree that
not
the
leaving
timing
this week.
is
She's gonna stay on
inconvenient,
for
but
another-
I also don't,
No, she hadn't heard.
I'm hesitant to provide a lot of extra burden on staff, although I
And I
understand.
agree. I'm not asking much of anything from them, really. I mean,
It
we've
will-
all have read through this thing and I have our understandings of it. Maybe, I don't know that we'd even ask staff to even give a presentation. They could just have somebody here to clarify something if we misunderstood it, but.
I can't imagine that they could get up to speed in this length of time. of the
That's why-
10th.
that's why I'm
I
kinda
can't imagine.
pushing
They're
for
just gonna
something to
vote
help
yes
them.
because y'all are gonna vote yes. So it's gonna pass unanimously, yeah. So,
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
I think it's a lot of conjecture. I don't know that their level of, like you said, enthusiasm or, to
Some
the
will be,
extent
some
that
may
they'll.
not be, I don't know.
Right.
That would be
But I also don't know
surprised.
the level of their vacation or plans, or if they would even show up to a study session. It's a lot of conjecture. We don't know.
Given that they're joining the P and Z, I would be surprised if they didn't know that this was coming. Like they should have been, you know what I mean? They must be aware of that this is coming on the 10th.
I can't speak for them.
I know, but I mean, it's like, it's like,
yeah, I'm not
Well,
sure.
one would hope that they would have participated at least in some of our community outreach opportunities. Again, we can't,
We just-
we can't
A
know.
little get together and they say that we're good, meeting over in 5 minutes.
Well, again,
I mean?
to my mind, in
We don't
terms
know
of-
whether they're
Right, we don't
attended.
know. Yes,
We don't know if they
yes.
know that it's been coming up or not. We're sort of,
We are.
Which again,
Same.
I plan to meet. I plan to reach out to all of these folks, and I mean that'll give me a good idea as far as I don't know if I could just ask about schedules, only because again, I'd have to find out also like if you guys do decide to have like a like an additional meeting prior to this. You're right. I think it's a 72-hour notification is all we would need to do. Of course,
we
72
post it and then
hours.
Listen, that
cancel?
does-
Could we
that does
post
put
it and
us-
cancel it? I mean, could we post something just to be covered and then we find out after your discussions with all the commissioners, they're all fine, they don't need anything, then we could cancel it? Or-
Well, as long as we don't have quorum, then it cancels.
you put it out publicly.
Question is,
Yeah.
P&Z adopts their meeting calendar at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
specific
Oh.
dates.
Yes.
I don't know what the process would be to add a date, and then also we broadcast the meeting, so we'd have to coordinate with that team, so.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So can we put together a subcommittee before
Yeah,
before July 1st, since they're not commissioners and
Yeah, well, Yeah, you can always put a subcommittee together, obviously, on any topic that y'all would want to do.
I'm saying leave it to Marcus. He's meeting 2 hours with every one of them. So
Yeah, no,
Marcus, it's on you here
Yeah.
to do the
Like a lot,
education.
but
It's fine. I mean, I was already planning to do that. And then I think, again, holding that meeting earlier in the day, as long as all of us can make it by 5 o'clock,
Yep.
I think that gives us plenty of time to answer questions. And we'll have the consultant here on top of that also, who'll be able to field some questions also as well. They are going to be here in person for that. And we'll also have some experts joining us virtually as well that work with Stan Tech
Right.
as well for
Yes, okay.
transportation and for some of the other areas. So I think we're okay, but I'll leave that to you guys also if y'all have other questions about it. But again, I'm meeting with each one to talk to them and
What I'm hearing is confidence and commitment from staff to do their due diligence to get them up to speed. We can lead a horse to water. We
Right.
can't necessarily force them to do all their homework, but I feel as though they will have ample
right.
resources and opportunities to do so.
we're sending it out. We're sending out
Do
the
you-
comp plan early to them. So
Yeah.
we'll make sure that they have that. And if they've got any questions, we're available. Absolutely.
I don't know that we as a body in our meeting would provide more than them doing that self-study of reading the
Right.
plan
Right.
and watching those videos. I
Right.
mean, what extra do we have to provide that is not already there recorded?
We could be a sounding board for them to ask something that they've thought since their discussions with him. Yeah, I thought about this and but that could also maybe answered in the meeting if we start earlier, so I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm just concerned there's a short period of time. We got
Yes.
4 or 5 new
Yes.
commissioners. There's a lot for them to absorb, all these other
Yes.
Understood.
meetings with the attorneys and all the ethics stuff and, this certification, that certification, plus a big comprehensive plan. So
Yeah.
No, understood.
I think that your point is well taken, and I at least I feel that we've received a good level of support from staff to ensure that again, they're provided every opportunity to get themselves up to speed. We can't, I've been a professor for a long time, and I have some students who do their homework and others who don't.
right.
And they're paying for it.
Yes, yes, and they are paying to
Yes.
sit there. That is true. That is true. All right. Any other additional agenda items? Exhaust those. All right. Thank you all. We will reconvene downstairs. We might be just a few minutes late for our 7 o'clock, but not too much. Hope we won't keep folks waiting too long.
Time.
Welcome to the City Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It is presently 7:03. I'd like to begin by thanking the commissioners for their service. I would especially like to, at this point, take just a moment to extend a special thanks for Linda Bertle for her many years of service. It's my understanding this will be her last meeting formally on our board and commissions here. However, we are thankful for your continued commitment to serve the city, particularly with your expertise and knowledge of our native plant species as we go forth with our 2 new ordinances on landscape as well as tree preservation. And 6 years as full term, and I'd like to just provide just a moment if anyone else wants to make any brief comments, and again, just really want to extend a gratitude.
Yeah, I'll just say, yeah, you're not off the hook. The landscape ordinance, the tree ordinance, they've been your passion. You've known more about that than any of us by far. And I know you've expressed interest in working not as a commission member, but in potentially other roles to see it over the line. Okay, and so I think we all would unanimously say, please do that.
All right. That will take us to item B, citizen comments. This agenda item provides an opportunity for citizens to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any matter that is not posted on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the commission should complete a citizen comments registration form and submit it to the chair prior to the start of the meeting. There is a 3-minute time limit for each citizen to speak, with a reasonable limitation on speakers on any one topic or item, with a maximum of 15 total minutes on the same topic item. Anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. The Planning and Zoning Commission is not permitted to take action on any subject raised by a speaker during citizen comments. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission may have the item placed on a future agenda for action, refer the item to the Director of Planning for further study or action, or briefly state existing city policy, or provide a brief statement of factual information in response to the inquiry. I've not seen any citizen comments forms this evening. And that will take us to our regular agenda items. First up, item C1, consider approval of the June 12th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners?
I move to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
Second.
We have a move and a second. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Item C2 is next. Consider the request for a final plat approval of Midway Row House, Lot 1, Block A, located at 4020 McEwen Road, and take appropriate action. Thank you, Sarah.
Good evening, Commissioners. Sarah Bergman, Lead Planner. Item C2 is a final plat request for 4.39 acres of land located at the northeast corner of McEwen Road and Blue Lake Circle. The site is zone plan development PD 90, and a multifamily development is currently under construction on the site. The applicant is proposing to replat 3 lots into 1 lot and dedicate easements necessary for the multifamily development. The plat is shown on the screen there, and the plat meets all state and local requirements for platting, so staff does recommend approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Thank you so much. Any questions for staff? All right. Any questions for the applicant? I don't see any questions for the applicant, so it sounds like any further discussion on the plat?
No, but can I just ask a question to them?
To the applicant? Sure,
Yeah, just
absolutely.
for general information. You don't even really, okay.
Well,
All right,
yeah,
come up.
yeah. And just please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jason Leeds, and my address is 17480 Dallas Parkway, Dallas 75287.
So Jason, I think I've spoken with you before
Yes, ma'am.
about the whole property, and especially about the pond area.
Right.
So I know that, is there any other, I know that we've lost a lot of trees, which we were sorry about, a lot of winds, and I think construction probably didn't help a lot. Is there anything different planned for that pond area around there to manage or is it just going all natural?
I no longer own the property around the 2-acre quarry pond. But I know, at least annual pruning has taken place. When we were, I guess about 3 or 4 months ago, we did some pruning. I called the new owner and asked his permission to do that, which we felt like kind of needed it to just keep, the trees where they're healthy and not having falling limbs or things like that over the jogging path. But no further plans that I'm aware of.
Okay,
So
thank you. So is the new owner in Dallas?
he lives here, yeah.
And he maintains the other area of the property?
If we could go,
Planting and all of that?
if we could go back to that prior exhibit. Okay. So everything that's not in green is what he purchased from me in the summer of 21.
Well, the pond in green, so who owns the area around there? There's a walking path.
He does.
He owns it.
It was-
Okay.
it was
Oh,
part
he
of-
owns the rest of it and then
Yes, ma'am.
bought, okay, got it. Okay,
The pond went with a
Got
sale
it.
of Midway Urban Village.
got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Commissioners, any further discussion? Questions? All right, I will hear a motion.
I will make a motion to approve as submitted, proposed.
Thank you. We have a motion for the request for final plat approval. And a second. Any
Second.
further discussion on the matter? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you again, Sarah. All right, up next, item C3. Consider the request for a detailed site plan amendment for a mixed-use development on approximately 7.76 acres located at 13465 Inwood Road and take appropriate action.
Good evening, Commissioners. This is going to be for 13465 Inwood Road. And really, first off, just kind of going through the general information. This is located within Plan Development District 87. The whole site is 7.76 acres, and currently there's about 39,000 square feet of ground floor restaurant retail space. And all of that retail and restaurant space is located in Building 1, the ground floor of Building 1, located here on the east side of the development. And really, the entirety of this site plan request to see some conversion from that restaurant retail space to multifamily use is going to be what's within this dashed box here, kind of the southern half of Building 1. Everything else is really going to remain as is on site. So the official request from the applicant is to allow for 25,845 square feet, or approximately that much area, to be converted from restaurant retail into 18 multifamily units. There are going to be a couple other additions to this as well. The most prominent will be the addition of 3 attached garages and 7 detached garages, as well as a establishment of an amenitized courtyard area. Overall, this kind of just gives the detail of the site plan, or at least a little more in depth. Zoomed in, you can see it a little bit better. The current, or the plan right now shows that this is, or was, a hibachi restaurant here on the far east side. That will be split up into 6 two-story multifamily units. The northern units will have attached garages that will be reserved for the tenants within these units. And then the rooftop of those, and we'll see a little more detail on this in a minute, will have a kind of a rooftop terrace to use as an amenity area and just general entertainment area for the residents living within these units. We will see along the south side of most of these units that are along Galleria Drive will have some sort of porch aspect that faces Galleria Drive that currently does not exist on site right now. That will be an improvement to the facade. And then we'll see this retail area over here on the west side along Broadstone Parkway that will also be converted into multifamily units with approximately 4 of those having access to Broadstone, and then also we'll see a couple that will have access to the kind of that parking lot area along that you can get access to along Inwood. The landscape plan better shows kind of the courtyard. This will be a private courtyard only for the residents within kind of this, converted area. And this will be heavily amenitized as well with uplighting. There will be planter boxes within that. And I do have a few renderings within this slideshow to better show better illustrate what that will look like. As far as parking goes, they are well overparked, even with the construction of the garages, which would technically remove 23 spaces. They are going to be adding back 13 spaces of the 23 that they removed, so it's just going to be 10 less than what's currently out there. But they're still, as you see, 592 spaces is what would be required for this entire development, and if approved, they will still be providing 687 total parking spaces. I wanted to pick out these elevations because these will be where you see the most significant facade changes to the existing building. The south elevation along Galleria Drive, you will see a lot of the back of retail space removed, and there will be these porches that are going to be added along Galleria Drive, along with additional glazing, doors, things like that make it more residential versus the current retail or restaurant back of house that you see currently. And then the west elevation, this is going to be, again, along Broadstone, where, again, you're going to see the addition of doors, some glazing, some porches added in, and also just general, almost like stoops there along Broadstone that will allow direct access for the residents to the sidewalk, and you can get over to that parking garage as well from that sort of setup. This is a look at the more amenitized side of things. This is going to be within that nook that currently where all the retail faces the parking lot. On the top left, you see the attached garages with the terraces on top. All the garages will have kind of this frosted glass type doorway to the that's going to kind of, the best thing I can equate to is kind of a firehouse type garage. So it will be an enhanced garage door. It's not going to be like your standard single family garage door I guess that you typically see. There will be an enhancement to that with uplighting and just kind of overall trying to dress up the addition of the garages within this area. And then kind of back behind that, between the detached garages and where you're going to enter some of the apartments, the additional apartments in the retail area, you will have these planter boxes added, string lights. There's going to be kind of just a courtyard area where folks can gather and hang out and visit with neighbors. And all in all, this will be an amenitized area that will be strictly for the residents within this section of the multifamily development. As far as the comp plan, east side plan is concerned, it does recommend, this is, I guess, located within the regional mixed use district. It encourages high quality multi-story, multifamily with ground floor commercial uses. And given that only, while they are requesting that 25,845 square feet of that commercial retail space be converted, they are still going to hold on to an additional 13,155 square feet on the northern half of Building 1 of retail space, and that's going to remain as retail space. So you are still holding on to that mixed use component with this development, and therefore it's still adhering to the recommendation of the East Side Plan to maintain that multi-story multifamily with ground floor commercial uses. And with that, staff recommends approval of the detailed site plan amendment as shown. And if you do have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. The applicant is here as well this evening to answer any questions y'all might have for the applicant.
All right. First, any questions for staff? All right. Will we have questions for the applicant, I take it? Yes, okay. Please come forward, applicant.
and state your name and address for the record.
All right. Good evening, Commission and members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Daniel Box, and I'm a zoning attorney with Winstead PC, located at 2728 North Harwood in Dallas, Texas. I don't have too much to add. I know you have a couple of questions, so I'm here to reiterate that we are seeking to amend the approved development plan for the PD in order to improve this, have approved this detailed site plan. The motivation behind this request is it does have to do with retail vacancies and also delinquencies in rental payments that go back as far even to COVID. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. The applicant is also here, Cortland, and also the project architect, OmniPlan, to get into some of the technical weeds. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, go.
What type of retail space are you looking, since you're taking out the restaurant, are you looking at more store retail, selling of goods and items, or bakery stores? What type of retail?
Yeah, I think that'd be a good question for the applicant. I'll let him step up and kind of explain what was there, what has been there, and what kind of vacancies we've seen and are seeking to replace.
And again, just state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Good evening, Commission. Thank you for having us. My name is Kyle Bate, and I live at 3866 Van Ness Lane, 75220. So the types of retail that we currently have, the mix is actually a little heavy on services. So we have a couple of salons. One we're trying to relocate from the plan area that we're proposing to convert over to the north side. We have some vacancy there in the existing 14,000 feet that will remain. We also have a restaurant space that's available for lease. And so it's a little bit of a mix, a little heavy services. We don't really have any folks selling goods at this point. And we're looking to really right-size the retail allocation. If you look at what's being built today in this type of development, you're getting 7, 8, maybe 12 to 15,000 feet of retail space. Otherwise, it's just really tough to fill. It's hard to get a good mix that the tenants are excuse me, using, appreciating, patronizing those establishments. So this will really help us kind of curate more of a mix as opposed to just filling space with whatever we can get a credit tenant for, which is even tough. So that's the goal. A little bit of food, restaurant services, a little bit of personal services with the salons, and then we'd be happy to bring in something else that maybe does sell some goods. We just haven't had any bites from anybody selling goods.
Great, thank you. Other questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had one or two questions regarding you. I was reading through the letter that you presented as to rationale behind this change. And I just wanted to, I know that you'd mentioned that you tried to re-tenant some of the space and you've not had much success. Can you tell me what steps you have taken to try and entice the re-tenant?
Sure. Yeah, we've used commercially reasonable process to do that by engaging a tenant rep broker. We've used this group Winstead Weitzman. We've used the group Weitzman pretty much since inception. Our partner on the deal wanted to use them, and we've had varying degrees of success. They've presented us with a number of LOIs from various businesses, most of which either the business plan or the financial backing or the terms that they were willing to engage at were not workable. So we've entertained maybe 6 or 8 LOIs for various spaces over the since COVID really, so the last 3 years, and are maybe close to connecting on one for a vacant space on the north side of the space that will remain.
Thank you.
Additional questions? Okay.
Yeah, so going back to when this was built, it had some expectation of how this would work out. And now here we are. It didn't work out that way. I've heard COVID a couple of times. What's the big picture? Like, what changed from your projections to today? How would you describe how you ended up like here today?
Yeah, my perspective really only starts from the last few years. We acquired the asset in 2017. We were not the original developers. If I had to put myself in their position from back in 2008, I think they probably said, hey, we like this site, it works, The zoning calls for ground floor retail, so we're going to slap the ground floor retail here along the most busy traffic thoroughfare in Wood. And they probably didn't think that much about if it made sense to do that or not. They just wanted to get the deal done, I assume, especially considering they sold it twice before we acquired it. Yes.
Go ahead.
So stuff on top of garages, and we've got 105 or 110 degrees out there. How's that going to work?
Seasonally.
Seasonally only. So there's nothing you could erect that would be, I guess it's each person that would own that garage, right, would have to erect their own. So what's
Cover?
what's the flooring on it? What is it?
Yeah, so I assume it'll be a pedestal roof over TPO, so I'm speaking for the architect, I don't know, but
Nay,
in my experience, that's what I would do.
What's the floor of the overhead space? I mean, if I'm standing up on the roof, what am I standing on?
Yeah.
Jess Slater, a principal with Omniplan Architects, we're at 1845 Woodall Rogers in Dallas, Texas. Great question. So the positive thing is most of those garages right now, at least the ones that are second story at this time of the day, would be in the shade because they're on the north side of the facade.
Okay.
And that facade is about 24 to 26 feet in height. So we'll get plenty of shade in the late afternoon.
Okay.
The current plan for this flooring is to be what you would typically see on a structured deck. We're looking at some kind of wood product or wood-like product that's manufactured, that's long-lasting. Much like Kyle said, it'll be on a pedestal system, so it'll allow drainage to happen the way that we would need it to.
Good. Okay, I feel better already. Yes, good.
Your morning coffee might be a little warm, but the afternoon would be great.
Well, I think it's a great concept. So what can you see from up there? If you've got a building in front, you can't really see. I mean, it's just all self-contained here. I mean, you don't have a skyline or anything like that for view.
Well, I guess,
Do you?
one thing, tenants that are on that, you'll be able to see up towards the north. So you'll be able to see down Tollway a bit. And so you'll have some views kind of to the neighborhood around you. There are some mature trees in the area, so it does provide a little bit of comfort that you're not looking right on a highway.
Okay.
But you'll have some visibility kind of, around the neighborhood, if you will.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Any other questions? One question I had, might be architect, might not, thinking about both those garages and as you take what was a retail space and move it into a residential, I heard about the frosting and that sort of thing, or glazing, I guess is the word that was used. Thinking about kind of the walkability of that area and that sort of thing, we of course know for fenestration that transparency aids in walkability to the thing. Have you made considerations there? It's a little hard to tell like the extent of that glazing and how that might either contribute to positive walkability or take away from that.
Yeah, you're trying to find that balance. And one of the things, if you walk the site right now, specifically on Galleria, it's not that nice of a walk.
Yeah.
It's actually a little bit difficult because you're kind of meandering around some of the services that are there. Luckily, part of this plan is we're going to remove the need for, there's a loading dock right there, so we're going to be able to actually add in a little bit more landscape and a little bit better sidewalk, give a little bit of breathing room for some of those patios. This side of the facade, we're not planning on entries into the units. They're just going to be patios.
Got it.
So a place where you could sit outside, grab your morning coffee, and kind of relax a little bit. So with the addition of additional more landscaping, better sidewalks, we think it's going to help specifically on the walkability. And then if you're walking alongside porches, someone's back patio versus a blank wall, we feel like it's going to be a little bit more inviting. On the western side, when you kind of get into the development, it's right adjacent to the leasing center. That side already has ample sidewalks and trees. We're just kind of mirroring that and creating a little bit more of an opportunity on both sides of the street, which I think will help overall.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for answering that question.
So I still have one. So I noticed that you had planters with plantings and things in your drawing. Is that on the plan?
I'll jump to this one so we can see it.
Yeah. Right here, right down here. So having experience with other builders that do this, what you put in those planters is vital as to how big it will be in the end, how much water it needs, if you've got draining in the bottom or whatever, if it flowers, if it doesn't flower. It can make or break that area within a year or two.
100%.
And so please, whoever is designing that, make sure they know what they're putting in and make sure it's Texas, not I don't know wherever your architect lives.
Well, yeah, the landscape architect is local, and he's very rooted into Texas landscape.
He's actually a landscape okay,
Yes.
good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm an architect, it's another guy, so you can blame him, but he's, yeah.
And I will add too, because we own so many properties around DFW, we use a single landscape vendor, and we have a dedicated resource who works in our corporate office who manages all of that.
Fabulous.
And
He knows what works and doesn't.
he
and
knows what
manages.
works in Texas.
Good.
They help. I'll show you the planters on my front porch. They're huge and they look beautiful and they're irrigated with drip line because they do all the right things.
Okay,
'Cause
great.
It's a maintenance thing. Those folks maintain it.
Yeah.
They'll also be the ones to install it, so they're going to do it right.
Loving what I hear. So that's a plus already. So good. Thank
I'll
you,
show you
thank
the
you.
photos
You bet.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I do guys take the opportunity, so you have lots of properties. How would you describe the market right now? We had those crazy years, it was overheated. How would you describe it today?
For apartments. The real estate market for apartments right now is,
Yeah.
I think actually Dallas is probably the most liquid market in the country. Transactions continue to happen here. I think it has to do with how deep the market is. There's almost 900,000 institutional quality apartments in DFW, which is huge. It's a city that's creating 200,000+ jobs a year, and there's 128,000 new immigrants. So I think people have a lot in the last 12 months. So I think people have a lot of confidence about the depth of the market here, which is allowing them to continue to transact. Rents have normalized a ton. So I think that's healthy for both the market and for the consumer who's had a tough time keeping up with rent payments as they've grown. So there's a lot of rebalancing that's happening now. I read a lot of headlines about how rent growth is slowing, like it's a bad thing. Like I think the market's actually closer to equilibrium than it's been in 4 years. So I think that's a good thing.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Just,
size are these that you're putting in? What size are these apartments that you're putting in?
On
The
average,
sizes
the
of
square
them.
footage,
Uh-huh.
they're large. They're very large. So the townhomes are 1,700 to 2,300 square feet.
Wow, good.
The one bedrooms are around 1,000 feet. 12. A little over 1,000 feet. And the two bedrooms are somewhere in between there. They're very spacious. And we've taken the time, and we've probably spent 12 hours in the last 2 weeks just iterating the floor plans with our design team and the architect to make sure we're going to do really nice stuff like high-end kitchens, 2 shower heads in the showers with overhead
Nice.
rainfall, tile all the way up.
So
They're going to be
what's-
very nice.
What's doing better, 1 or 2 bedrooms?
What's doing better? It depends on the location. I think the rent growth is better in 1 bedrooms right now because you have young, single people with good jobs that can pay. If the market was to continue to, rents were to continue to grow and we went into a recession, 2 bedrooms will probably do better because folks who decoupled from households will probably recouple in households and put some price pressure on the 2s. But yeah, it depends on the property and the location.
Good stuff. Thank you.
Sure.
one more question on my side. Are your retail leasing, is it comparable for the DFW area? I'm just trying to get an idea of, since because of this change, because of renting and getting spaces leased, was a challenge. Do you consider yourself being comparable, or you?
The pricing?
In terms of pricing?
Yeah, so we've done a comp study on a couple of the vacant spaces right now. It's tough to find a really perfect comp. There's some space across the street that's somewhat comparable, and there's probably 3 or 4 locations around the area. Most of them have a little bit better either visibility or drive-by, but we're right in the range. I mean, anywhere between $15 to $25 a foot, depending on gross, modified, net, et cetera. But the problem is too, if we lower the rate too much, then we just get inquiries from really unqualified tenants. So it's kind of a waste of time. You got to find the sweet spot.
Correct.
I had one additional question, and perhaps you can so I know that you said you've purchased this property, had this acquisition. Does your organization also do the management of the property?
We do.
I'm curious about that because seeing this courtyard, which as I understood it is sort of a special amenity for these units, and as you've described them, they're certainly very nice units. I'm curious about potential programming in that space, to be a truly effective third space that people actually use, not just a kind of dead, empty space that people maybe walk their dog through. Some sort of programming, would be a best practice. Is that a common practice in this property or others that you do kind of residential programming to activate those spaces?
It's something that's become much more in vogue in our space over the years. I mean, people are turning tennis courts into social pavilions. So I think this is just a trend where people are taking more advantage of being outside. I think it's a trend that was in place well before COVID, but that COVID helped sort of accelerate or shed light on. And yeah, as the manager, we do this kind of stuff a lot. I mean, we'll have access controlled entry points. Everyone's key fob is specific to their unit. And so we can, you'll have permissions based on living in that. I don't know if you're by programming, you meant how the area looks and feels and is used, or also how we control access, but all of those things are very much addressed and kind of in line with what, if somebody else owned this asset and was in our position, I'm sure they would be doing the same thing. And this is how they would think about it if they had a great architect anyway.
I think I'm speaking more towards the actual utilization in terms of truly having it be amenity for those guests. And I say this because in our east side, and we've been looking at our comprehensive plan, we know that a lot of the residents on this east side that are in a lot of these, really nice apartment buildings, but sometimes lack for some green space or outdoor space. And so I think you've done an excellent job of meeting, the spirit of what we've asked in our multifamily in terms of providing that third space amenity. But again, in order to make it, one of the things we try to do as the city for our third space amenities in the parks is to have events and activities happening in the parks that really make those spaces come alive for those residents that would use them. And so again, for your space to maybe meet that qualification as well as the city is able to provide, I'm curious, how you envision it truly being a place you want to go, you linger, you stay, you engage in that space.
Yeah.
A true third space that you would be enticed to go. Again, rather than, we've seen them all over town. This is not, anything about your specific plan, but we've seen lots of dead plazas or courtyards, right?
Fair. Well, I think because this space is going to be sort of exclusive for those residents whose units are adjacent and connect to it, it wasn't something we had thought about in the line of programming community events. I mean, we are very forward in community events. We do at least one a month, and a lot of properties where they're well attended, we do them almost every week or sometimes twice a week. We also have an Elevate fitness program that's a Cortland branded program where we work with local partners to host yoga out on the lawn or boot camp classes in the fitness center. So I think as a company, we do a really good job of programming for the third space. We hadn't really considered that here just because it is sort of exclusive to a small group of folks, but really I think that almost makes it more of a tight knit to where the folks who are wanting to lease these spaces and end up living here have that ability to really see each other, whether they're coming and going from the unit or they're doing s'mores for the kids at the fireplace or they're just hanging out outside enjoying, a glass of wine on an evening. And so this really becomes like a curated space for this group of people to have their own little sense of community within the community.
Great. Thank you for answering that.
Sure.
Great answer. All right. I see no further questions from our members. Thank you so much for answering all of our questions.
Sure. Thank you.
Commissioners, do we have this item? Is there a motion? It is a request for a detailed site plan amendment.
I move that we accept the detailed site plan amendment.
I second.
All right, and second, any further discussion on the matter? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? All right, that carries unanimously. Thank you so much. This will go to City Council July 18th to City Council. Thank you again so much. And with that, that brings us to adjournment. It is presently 7:37 p.m. Thank you all.